Electricity, power, well recognized to be the key driver of industry and economic expansion the world over, its supply has been far less than adequate in Africa's most populous nation, a fact well known to millions of Nigerians. At present, reforms are being implemented, but are they achieving results?
The sound of a power generator has long been the soundtrack of Nigerian life, filling both homes and businesses alike while draining the resources of its users. What is being done to boost power outputs in the country? What is standing in the way of the provision of steady power supply to Nigerians? We separate fact from fiction in the nation's power sector.
We hear from industrial leaders, government officials,
Nigerians must have electricity.
and most essentially, we hear from you, the citizen, to ascertain the actual state of the Nigerian power sector as the State of the Nation presents the Report Card. Good evening to our viewers here at home and around the world. I am your host, Ajuri Ngilale, and you are most welcome to this special edition report card series of the State of the Nation. Nigeria's electric power sector is entering a new and uncharted phase of its development, following the privatization of the sector with the recent handover of nearly all of the formerly state-run power assets on November 1st of this year. With the progressive implementation of the 2005 Electric Power Sector Reform Act, the mandate of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, and the effective execution thereof is and will remain a critical determinant of the success or failure of the nation's power sector in the post-privatization era. Whether or not the Nigerian consumer will be getting a fair deal from new private sector operators in the sector will depend almost entirely upon the ability of the nation's power sector regulator to rein in any excessive profit-seeking measures of the new industrial owners and operators. How will they ensure fairness for operators seeking immediate returns on their investments while also protecting the interests of Nigerians who have expressed frustration with the instability of power supply in the present national situation? We will attend to these and other critical issues on this edition of the State of the Nation. On March 1st, 2014, the Transitional Electricity Market, TEM, will be declared effective, which will set the updated modalities of electric power sector regulation while setting new market rules that will govern the operations of the newly privatized electricity market and value chain. While consultations between the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and industrial operators are ongoing to establish a final set of market rules, challenges remain in the process of harmonizing the interests of industrial operators and the interests of the end user, the Nigerian consumer. We delve into the obstacles still confronting the establishment of a final set of electricity market rules and how the larger process of market rules implementation will ultimately affect you, the consumer. The Multi-Year Tariff Order, MYTO, is one of the more famous features of the privatization process in the nation's power sector, largely because it so directly affects millions of Nigerians and impacts their daily, weekly, and monthly budgets. But how does the new pricing regime actually work? Is the pricing regime equipped to function in a way that ensures adequate consumer protection? What is the position of private sector owners on the current MITO 2 pricing regime being implemented? Is the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission doing its part to ensure that the Nigerian public is getting value in power provision for the increased tariffs being set in the nation's electricity market? We take an in-depth look at the multi-year tariff order this evening. The dissemination of prepaid power meters has become an issue of grave concern for electric power consumers across the country, as an acute shortage of prepaid meters has made the efficient implementation of the multi-year tariff order challenging, as many consumers are stuck with NEPA-era estimated tariff meters that fail to accurately capture the amount of power consumed by the end user, which can result in excessive charges amongst other consequences. Are the nation's authorities prepared to address this vexing issue? We have your answer on this edition of the program. On our tour of the nation, ostensibly no city or state could brag of a busier commercial center than that of Anambra State's city of Onitsha. Once the pulse of the short-lived nation of Biafra, Onitsha still reposes within it the ingenuity of a people known for their entrepreneurial brilliance and commercial acumen. But does the present power situation in the southeastern business hub optimize or undermine the people's entrepreneurial aspirations? We bring you our report from Onitsha and the larger report card on the electric power sector regulation on this edition of the State of the Nation when we come back from this short break. Stay with us. Electricity, power, well recognized to be the key driver of industry and economic expansion the world over, its supply has been far less than adequate in Africa's most populous nation, a fact well known to millions of Nigerians. At present, reforms are being implemented, but are they achieving results?
The sound of a power generator has long been the soundtrack of Nigerian life, filling both homes and businesses alike while draining the resources of its users. What is being done to boost power outputs in the country? What is standing in the way of the provision of steady power supply to Nigerians? We separate fact from fiction in the nation's power sector.
We hear from industrial leaders, government officials,
Nigerians must have electricity.
and most essentially, we hear from you, the citizen, to ascertain the actual state of the Nigerian power sector as the State of the Nation presents the report card.
Up till now, you can see that in many areas we don't see the prepaid meter. No, you go to the NEPA office, it's not there. You come here, they give you complaints that don't exist. Is it that somebody cannot manufacture prepaid meter? Why is it not happening? We are dragging ourselves backwards. Something needs to be done.
Over 80% of complaints received by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, are centered on issues bordering on estimated metering and excessive tariffs as a consequence of estimated metering methodology as well as poor metering infrastructure. Many consumers have petitioned the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission with alarming regularity concerning the failure of their respective distribution companies across the country to provide them with new metering facilities for efficient and accountable tariff billing, in addition to other related estimated billing issues, resulting in an acute lack of transparency in electricity billing. In response, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has rolled out new measures after the end of the initial 18-month metering plan. The new measures, known as the Credit Advance Payment for Meter Installation, CAPMI scheme, which they assert was initiated to augment the previous metering plan. Under the new CAPMI scheme, the customers of the nation's distribution companies whom are willing to pay in advance for prepaid meters would receive prepaid meters between 2 and 45 days after a payment of 25,000 naira for a single-phase power meter. The cost of the meter would then be refunded to the customers through a billing process spreading over 3 years at a 12% interest rate. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has ordered all of the nation's power distribution companies to commence the CAPMI scheme to end the metering shortage in the country. Regarding questions about the multi-year tariff order's fairness to the Nigerian electricity consumer, the chief executive of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Dr. Sam Amadi, certainly believes the fairness of the electricity market's pricing regime is not in question.
The hardest decision we made as a regulator was deciding to create a cost-reflective tariff. It was difficult because the political environment was not very convenient. A new government came to power with a strong opposition. Power is a major political issue, and the idea that people have no regular power supply and not low connectivity, and you are still going to increase the tariff was big. But what we did was to say, you know what, go out and communicate it. But at the same time, we were transparent with the process of the review. We made a strong argument that without a cost-reflective tariff, you wouldn't even have the supply to improve. So we delinked tariff and improvement. We say, look, you got to get the tariff right to even have a sense of improvement in the future. And then we got the politicians to key in and line up with the action. Initially, it was politically difficult to sell, but we were able to stay on message. I said, you know what, this sector collapsed because it had a depressed tariff, and this sector can only come back to life if you have a tariff that covers the cost and allows recovery and, of course, gives a reasonable return on investment. So the point here is we took the risk. And then when we were unshakable, when we were committed and resolute, the political authority lined up and the consumer. 6 months down the line after the tariff, we've not had a major backlash.
The Multi-Year Tariff Order, MYTO, is a 15-year tariff regime beginning in 2008 and terminating in 2023. It allows for minor changes every year and major reviews every 5 years to account for necessary new inputs in power generation as well as factors concerning power output. The yearly adjustments typically cater to inflation, any increase in gas prices, as well as exchange rate fluctuations, which percentage fluctuations are equal to or exceed 5%. In the context of the full deregulation of the nation's power sector, the cardinal considerations in the development of a new post-privatization pricing regime were cost reflectivity for investors and affordability for consumers. The central objective was and remains providing the industry with a stable and cost-reflective pricing structure that provides a modest return on investment to efficient industrial operators. At the same time, the tariff structure is such that it endeavors to protect consumers against excessive pricing. However, almost immediately after inception in 2008, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission realized that 2 of the fundamental inputs used to make projections forming the development of the original MITO 1 pricing regime, namely gas prices and foreign exchange rates, had changed substantially from the initial assumptions used, thus making the rates of return unattractive to prospective investors. Additionally, the leadership of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission at the time failed to take into account an emerging reality that there were potential investors in the generation segment of the power industry wishing to enter the market using alternative sources of fuel for generating electricity, such as coal, wind, and solar, which the MITO 1 pricing regime of 2008 failed to envisage or accommodate. The current MITO 2 pricing regime, which took effect from midnight of May 31, 2012, is for the period June 1, 2012 to May 31, 2017. MITO 2 is intended to be cost-reflective and to provide financial motivations for instantly needed incremental investments in the industry. These investments, in turn, are expected to lead to a significant and unceasing improvement in the quantity of energy and the quality of service enjoyed by the consumer. The new MITO 2 retail tariff schedule will be reviewed biannually, and variations will be affected where the Nigerian inflation rate, the U.S. dollar exchange rate, daily generation capacity, and any accompanying capital expenditure vary significantly from those originally used in the calculation of the tariff. Under the MITO 2 pricing regime, 14 new classes of customers were created from consumers who use various premises exclusively as a residence, such as a house, a flat, or a multi-storied house, or mere streetlights. The new multi-year tariff order stipulates that high-income households that use more electricity will pay more for the power that they consume, just as low-income households using less power would pay less for any power that they consume. However, some new changes are underway that will be of great import to the Nigerian masses, perhaps none more than the phasing out of the subsidy made available to Nigeria's lowest earning power consumers. The federal government had, in 2012, budgeted to spend about 110 billion naira in subsidizing electricity consumption, particularly for Nigeria's rural population, for over 2 years, spanning 2012 and 2013. 60 billion naira was provided for this purpose in 2012, while another 50 billion naira was provided for in the 2013 budget. However, as power outputs are expected to double in 2014 with the addition of nearly 5,000 megawatts from the nation's 10 NIPP power projects, in addition to increased output from pre-existing plants via increased gas availability to the plants and new infrastructural investment from private sector owners, the federal government insists that the loss of the pricing regime subsidy will be offset by the reduction of expenditure on diesel power generation by Nigeria's population as power output increases and stabilizes. The funds recently used to fund the subsidy will now be channeled into the federal government's rural electrification initiative, using alternative energy sources to boost power outputs in the nation's rural communities.
In any battle between competing interests, there are almost always casualties. In a bid to keep capital expending investors happy with their rates of return and the overall effort to reassure Nigerians that increased tariffs would soon equate to more reliable power supply, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, finds itself walking a tightrope in the development of new governing market rules.
While anticipating the Transitional Electricity Market, TEM, to be tentatively declared on March 1, 2014, both the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and the initial stakeholders advisory panel of the Nigerian electricity supply industry, NESI, which comprises both private industrial investors and public stakeholders, agreed that the review of rules governing the market has become necessary to reflect current developments and the new structures within the NESI. The new amendments will touch on key outstanding issues, such as the new modalities governing market operator and market rule systems in relation to procedures already in place, as well as the relationship between system operator and grid code systems, in addition to the commencement date for all of the formal contracts previously signed, amongst other issues. The market rules are a set of regulations that govern commercial transactions and relationships between market participants in the power sector, while the grid code determines how operations are conducted on the system operator-controlled grid. These rules had been in existence since February 2010 and were reviewed in 2012 by the initial stakeholders advisory panel of the Nigerian electricity supply industry to address particular errors and inconsistencies that were observed with a view to harmonizing them with the grid code. The observed errors and inconsistencies then were due in part to the evolving structure of the market, yet the current amendments also became necessary in order to keep operations and management in sync with the current realities of the newly privatized electric power market structure. While the consultations process is said to be running smoothly ahead of the declaration of a finite transitional electricity market on March 1st of next year, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has warned all investors and industrial operators that the new rules being effectuated next year must be strictly adhered to by all stakeholders in the power sector, emphasizing that any effort to undermine the newly established market rules through undue external political interference in the markets would be strictly prohibited and punished. As the State of the Nation presents the report card. Tomatoes, egusi, fruits. Not only are they must-have items in almost every Nigerian kitchen, but also a primary source of income for hundreds of market traders within and around Onitsha's bustling city center. On a busy weekend trading day, we took to a local market to ask about power supply in Onitsha.
The city of Onitsha has long been recognized as a commercial nerve center for the southeast geopolitical zone and indeed the larger Nigerian nation. However, frequent power outages and inadequate power supply have undermined its potential contribution to the nation's economy, something that the marketers here at Onitsha Market recognize as an inhibitor of economic progress, and they see a potential increase in power supply as a potential change in their economic fortunes.
Today, but not be every day we see light for this Onitsha. But light today, but not be every day. We need light every day, day by day.
As I enjoin you to join us next week, I thank you for joining us this evening on AIT, your network of choice. My name is Ajuri Ngilale. Until next time and always, may God be with you.